He was my uncle Elias, the strong, silent type. A towering presence in my life, a figure of authority, always there with a gruff hello and a firm handshake. He smelled of wood smoke and old leather, a scent that always seemed to cling to him, even when he was wearing his finest suit. My parents, bless their souls, were always a whirlwind. Loud, passionate, and prone to dramatic displays. Elias, on the other hand, was a rock. Steady, unwavering, a constant in a world that often felt chaotic. He was the one who taught me to fish, patiently explaining the intricate dance of bait and cast. He was the one who fixed my bike, his large hands effortlessly maneuvering the tools, his brow furrowed in concentration. He was the one who always had a candy bar tucked away in his truck, a small gesture that always brought a smile to my face. But there was another side to Elias, a side that remained hidden beneath the surface of his stoic demeanor. It was a side that I only began to glimpse after my parents' divorce. The upheaval had thrown my world into disarray. My mother, consumed by grief and anger, had spiraled into a depression that left her incapable of caring for me. My father, overwhelmed by guilt and the demands of his new life, had offered to send me to boarding school. But Elias, ever the pragmatist, had intervened. "He's family," he'd roared at my father, his voice booming through the phone. "He belongs with family, not some fancy school." And so, I found myself living with my uncle, a man I barely knew, in a secluded cabin deep within the woods. The cabin was a rustic affair, filled with the scent of pine and the crackling of the fireplace. It was a world away from the bustling city, a world of quietude and solitude. At first, the silence was deafening. Elias, true to form, spent most of his time working, his broad shoulders hunched as he chopped wood or tended to his garden. I spent my days wandering the woods, exploring the hidden trails and marveling at the wildlife. But slowly, a different rhythm began to emerge. Elias would join me for dinner, his silence punctuated by the clatter of his fork against his plate. He would tell me stories of his youth, his voice roughened by years of smoking, his eyes twinkling with a mischievous glint. He would teach me about the stars, pointing out constellations with a weathered finger. One evening, as we sat by the fire, the flames casting dancing shadows across the walls, Elias surprised me. "You know," he began, his voice low and husky, "I always wanted a son." The words hung in the air, heavy and unexpected. I looked at him, startled, my heart pounding against my ribs. He met my gaze, his eyes searching mine, a raw emotion flickering in their depths. The silence that followed was more profound than any that had preceded it. I felt a strange pull towards him, an inexplicable attraction that I couldn't deny. He was my uncle, yes, but something had shifted between us, something that I couldn't quite name. The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions. The tension between us grew palpable, a silent, unspoken current that flowed beneath the surface of our daily interactions. Elias would linger near me, his touch brushing against mine, his gaze lingering a moment too long. He would find excuses to be near me, to help me with chores, to offer me a hand as I stumbled over a fallen log. One afternoon, while we were clearing a fallen tree branch from the path, our hands brushed against each other. A jolt, like static electricity, passed between us. We both froze, our eyes meeting across the fallen wood. Elias's breath hitched, his gaze dropping to my lips. I felt a blush creeping up my neck. "Sorry," he muttered, his voice rough. I couldn't speak, my throat suddenly dry. I simply nodded, unable to tear my gaze away from his. Later that evening, as I sat on the porch, the scent of pine needles filling the air, I heard a soft thud behind me. Elias was standing there, a single red rose in his hand. "For you," he said, his voice low and husky. I took the rose, the thorns pricking my fingers. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice trembling. He sat down beside me, the silence between us thick with unspoken words. I could feel his gaze on me, burning into my skin. I turned to face him, our eyes locking. "I don't understand," I confessed, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't understand why you're doing this." He reached out, his fingers tracing the outline of my face. "Because I can't stay away from you, Caleb. You're intoxicating." His touch sent shivers down my spine. I leaned into his hand, closing my eyes. "But we shouldn't," I murmured. This is wrong." He shook his head, his lips brushing against my ear. "Wrong? Or forbidden? There's a difference, you know." His words ignited a fire within me, a forbidden longing that I had tried to suppress. I knew I shouldn't, that it was dangerous, but the pull of his desire was too strong to resist. One afternoon, while we were working in the garden, the heat of the summer sun beating down on us, Elias turned to me, his eyes dark and intense. "James," he said, his voice rough, "I know this is wrong. I know I shouldn't even be thinking this way." I looked at him, my breath catching in my throat. "Thinking what, Uncle Elias?" He took a step closer, his hand reaching out to brush a stray strand of hair from my face. "Thinking about you like this," he whispered, his voice a mere breath against my skin. "Thinking about you in ways I shouldn't." My heart hammered against my ribs. I wanted to pull away, to deny the feelings that were blossoming within me, but my body seemed to betray me. I leaned into his touch, my eyes drawn to his lips, his strong jawline, his rugged features. He saw the desire in my eyes, the unspoken yearning that mirrored his own. His hand moved from my cheek to the back of my neck, his fingers gently massaging the tense muscles. "James," he breathed, his voice thick with emotion, "I've wanted you for so long." The words hung heavy in the air, a confession that both terrified and exhilarated me. I felt a strange pull towards him, a raw, primal attraction that defied logic. Years of societal conditioning, of ingrained beliefs about family and propriety, warred with the primal urge that surged through me. He leaned closer, his breath fanning my face, the scent of wood smoke and old leather intoxicating. His eyes, usually so guarded, were now pools of raw desire, reflecting the turmoil within me. I could see the years of longing in his gaze, the suppressed desires that had simmered beneath the surface of his stoic exterior. My own breath hitched. I wanted to pull away, to deny the feelings that were blossoming within me. This was my uncle, the closest thing I had to a father figure. This was wrong, sinful, forbidden. But the pull towards him was undeniable, a force more powerful than any societal taboo. His gaze dropped to my lips, his eyes darkening. I felt a shiver crawl down my spine, a wave of heat washing over me. My lips parted slightly, a silent invitation. He took a shaky breath, his hand tightening on my neck. "James," he whispered again, his voice hoarse, "are you sure?" I closed my eyes, burying my face in his chest. "Yes," I murmured, the word barely audible. "Yes, Elias." He pulled back slightly, his eyes searching mine, a mixture of fear and anticipation swirling within them. Then slowly he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't a passionate, demanding kiss. It was a hesitant exploration, a brush of lips, a cautious tasting of forbidden fruit. He tasted of wood smoke and sweat and something else, something deeper, something more primal. I responded instinctively, my hands reaching up to frame his face, my fingers tracing the lines of his weathered skin. I kissed him back, slow and deliberate, savoring the taste of him, the feel of his lips against mine. The kiss deepened, a slow, sensual dance of tongues and teeth. His hand slid down my back, exploring the contours of my body, sending shivers of pleasure down my spine. I felt a surge of desire, a primal yearning that I had never experienced before. He pulled back, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and exhilaration. I didn't expect this," he whispered, his voice rough with emotion. "I didn't know you felt the same way." I looked at him, my heart pounding in my chest. I don't know what came over me," I confessed, my voice trembling. "But it felt right. It felt incredible." He smiled, a slow, hesitant smile that transformed his rugged features. "Incredible," he agreed, his voice husky. "It was incredible." He leaned in and kissed me again, a long, lingering kiss that spoke volumes. It was a kiss filled with years of unspoken longing, a kiss that tasted of forbidden fruit, of danger and desire. We pulled apart, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. Elias looked at me, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and exhilaration. "I don't know what to do," he confessed, his voice rough with emotion. "I don't know if this is right." "I don't know either," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "But it feels right. It feels incredible." That night, under the watchful gaze of the stars, we made love. It was a slow, sensual exploration, a tender dance of bodies and souls. Uncle Elias was gentle, as if afraid of breaking something fragile. I, in turn, was eager, desperate to explore the depths of his passion. We spent the next few weeks lost in a whirlwind of forbidden pleasure. We would steal moments of intimacy whenever we could, our bodies meeting in the shadows of the woods, in the cool embrace of the lake, in the warmth of the cabin. But as our relationship deepened, so did the weight of our secret. The guilt filled me, a reminder of the taboo we were violating. I worried about the consequences, about the potential for scandal, for heartbreak. Elias, ever the pragmatist, tried to assuage my fears. "We'll be careful," he promised, his voice husky with desire. "We won't let anyone find out." But the fear remained, a lurking shadow that threatened to consume us. The whispers started to circulate among the townsfolk, fueled by gossip and innuendo. I overheard snippets of conversations, their words laced with suspicion and disapproval. One day while I was at the local store, I overheard a group of women gossiping about Elias. "He's always been a strange one of them hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "Always keeping to himself. Now he's got that boy living with him." I wouldn't be surprised if something improper was going on. The word struck me like a physical blow. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, my face burning with shame. I fled the store, my heart pounding in my chest, my mind racing. That night I confronted Elias. "They're talking about us," I said, my voice trembling. "They know." Elias's face hardened. "Who knows?" he demanded, his eyes flashing with anger. "Who's been spreading these lies?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But they're talking. Everyone is talking." Elias pulled me close, his arms wrapping around me in a comforting embrace. "Don't listen to them," he murmured, his voice a low growl. "They don't know anything. They're just jealous. We'll prove them wrong." But his words offered little comfort. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. The villagers exchanged furtive glances, their eyes filled with suspicion and disapproval. I felt like a caged animal watched and judged by every eye. The pressure mounted, threatening to tear us apart. Elias, once so confident, became withdrawn, haunted by the fear of discovery. I in turn became increasingly anxious, my sleep plagued by nightmares of exposure and rejection. One evening as we sat by the fire, the flames casting dancing shadows across the walls, Elias spoke. "We can't keep living like this," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "It's not fair to you. You deserve better." I looked at him, my heart aching. "What are you saying, Elias?" He took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on the flames. "I think we should separate. For now. Until things calm down." The words hit me like a physical blow. "Separate." I echoed, my voice choked with disbelief. "But what about us? What about what we have?" Elias looked at me, his eyes filled with a pain that mirrored my own. "I know," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "But it's for the best. For both of us." And so we parted ways. I returned to my father's house, the silence deafening, the memories of our time together a constant ache in my heart. Elias remained in the cabin, a solitary figure against the backdrop of the vast wilderness. The separation was agonizing. I missed him terribly, the touch of his hand, the warmth of his embrace, the sound of his laughter. I spent my days yearning for his return, for a chance to mend the broken pieces of our lives. Weeks turned into months and the whispers began to fade. The villagers, finding no fresh fodder for their gossip, turned their attention elsewhere. But the damage had been done. The trust between Elias and me had been shattered, the fragile bond that we had forged irrevocably broken. One day I received a letter from Elias. It was a simple letter, a few lines scrawled on a piece of lined paper. "I'm leaving," he wrote. "I can't stay here anymore. The memories are too painful." My heart sank. I knew that this was goodbye. Elias, ever the solitary soul, would disappear into the vastness of the world, leaving me behind with the echoes of a love that was never meant to be. I never saw him again. He vanished without a trace, leaving behind only the memories of our time together, a bittersweet reminder of a love that was both forbidden and unforgettable. Years passed. I moved on, built a life for myself, married, had children. But the memory of Elias, the forbidden love, the stolen moments of passion, remained etched in my soul. It was a secret I carried with me, a ghost of a love that could never be. And sometimes, late at night, when the world was quiet and the stars shone brightly, I would look up at the sky and think of Elias, wondering where he was, what he was doing, if he ever thought of me. The end.
Hey there. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, drop a comment, and subscribe to help us grow and keep sharing amazing content with you. And feel free to explore our other videos, we've got so much more epicness waiting for you. Thank you for being part of our journey, you're the real MVPs.